Wow. You guys all organized?
All good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We just had our very first caucus meeting. I'm very grateful to this small but mighty group right here beside me for their support and their leadership in the House. And we have come to the decision that we will continue the status quo for the time being until I wrap up my responsibilities as mayor of the city of Mississauga, which will come early in January. Of course, I have a number of longstanding commitments, including wrapping up my budget, the budget of the region of Peel, and also some commitments. And then I'll resign my seat and commit myself full-time here in provincial parliament. So I'm deeply honored that John Fraser will continue in his role as House Leader until we make changes or if we make changes in the new year. But we have a lot of work to do going forward, and I'm just honored to be working side by side with this team. Finally, let me just say one thing about Doug Ford and his Conservatives, and that is that they are desperate and flailing. And of course, they want you to be talking about me. They want everyone else to be talking about me rather than and their lame attack ads. Because of course we know that tomorrow there's an Auditor General's report, and it's going to show more of their corruption. They've hushed the City of Toronto on their Ontario Place fiasco, but they're not going to hush me or this incredible team. So every time you see me, I'm going to spend my time and my energy reminding Ontario that they deserve better than Doug Ford and this very shady, scandal-plagued government. We are going to talk about the things that matter to Ontarians and the things that an Ontario Liberal government can do to make things happen for people, ordinary, hard-working people. Finally. And now I'm happy to take your questions.
The Premier says you're flying around in a private jet with a developer. Who's that developer?
I have no idea what he's talking about, and quite frankly, I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
What's your relationship with Benny Marotta? Have you flown on a private jet with him?
I have never been on a... I'm not even sure he has a private jet, but perhaps he does. No, I have not. I don't know. I know him. He is a developer in the city of Mississauga, like many others, a partner in home building.
He says you're friends and you visited his winery. Is that accurate?
Yes, I have. I've even brought my mother there. She enjoys it as well, and many of my colleagues have visited as well. I know he likes to entertain politicians there.
Has he ever paid for any of those visits?
Absolutely not.
Is there some irony that Doug Ford is attacking you for apparently a privileged lifestyle when he has a cottage in Muskoka, a place in Florida, and a beautiful home in Etobicoke?
Let me just say that I have worked very, very hard in my life to achieve everything I have. I have earned every single penny. I have been not handed a political dynasty, nor have I been handed a business that has been built up for my offspring to run.
In fact, you mentioned in your acceptance speech that you actually grew up under difficult circumstances.
I have a very humble beginning. My parents and grandparents came from Poland. They lived initially with my grandmother's sisters until they could afford a down payment on a house, which was a large house in the High Park area. The only way they could afford the mortgage was to rent out rooms. We lived in a rooming house. I shared a room with my mother, and it was a very simple existence. There were no cottages. There were no holidays. There were no dinners out. There was no family car. We took the streetcar everywhere we went. And my mom remarried later in life when I was a little older, and we moved to Etobicoke. Her husband was a real estate broker, and we had feast or famine. But I had a very happy life, enriched in the values of hard work. And being a new immigrant, they understood hard work and family values is what I was trying to say.
So does this seem like a dirty attack to you, or is this just good old politics?
You know, I don't want us to be distracted because this is the Ford government's attempt to distract from the issues at hand. They are flailing, they are desperate, and tomorrow they expect a very negative Auditor General's report, so they're trying to change the channel and put the focus on me, whereas the focus should be on them.
You say you are going to raise $1 million by the end of this month. Are you asking people who donated to your leadership campaign to now make a donation to the party?
We are asking everyone. I actually haven't had the time to make any asks yet, but I know that the party is out making the ask. It's on all the social media. We're asking people to contribute. We'd like to raise, our goal is to raise $1 million by the end of the year. When I catch my breath, I may send some notes out myself to say, please, you have donated to myself. I'd like to encourage you to donate to the Ontario Liberal Party so we can go forward.
The PCs are also attacking you for fundraising, saying that you're raising $1 million to pay for your salary. Do you find that ironic?
$1 million salary. I'm the $1 million girl.
Fundraisers?
This party is going to need to be well financed. We are being out fundraised 10 to 1 by the Conservative Party. So we need to get to work so that we can define who we are and be ready for what's coming and prepare for the election in 2026.
How much will you pay yourself?
I haven't had that discussion yet. I'll look at to see what's competitive here and model myself after that.
But when will you start paying yourself? Will you take a salary while you are still the mayor of Mississauga?
Absolutely not. Not till I've resigned my seat and I'm here full time.
So, are you not taking a risk by not immediately resigning from the mayor's office? We already have Paul Calandra saying that you weren't here the first 2 days on the job, and that your dedication is all over the place because you are abandoning the people of Mississauga while also not taking control of the party as soon as you get it. Like, is this not a liability for you?
So I am very committed to my job. I take my job as mayor very seriously, and I will take this role very seriously as well. But all in good time. I have to wrap up my budget. As you recall, when John Tory resigned, he came back to shepherd his budget through the City Hall of Toronto, and I would intend to do the same. It's a serious job. It doesn't end the next day. There are a number of things that I will have to wrap up properly.
Mayor Crombie, on a different subject, on your day job, actually, your current day job, are you, we saw Brampton Mayor saying that de-amalgamation could cost $1.3 billion. You've disputed that figure. I'm just wondering, are you concerned at some of the noise that's out there around this debate?
So I'm not sure why Mayor Brown is trying to distract from the work on hand. It seems to be a desperate attempt to derail a process that is well in hand, a process that the Premier himself appointed a group that he has confidence in, and quite frankly, I've met with them and I have confidence in them as well. The Premier and I don't agree on a lot of things, but we do agree on dissolution of the region of Peel. He has made it his mandate to cut red tape and eliminate duplication and all those great things, eliminate waste, duplication, and cut red tape. And this is precisely what the dissolution of Peel does. Always having a second layer of government creates a secondary bureaucracy. I was just listing for myself the departments that are duplicated because they're in both the city and at the region, whether it's planning, regional roads, the legal department, transportation and works, business services and administration such as finance, audit, HR, IT, real estate, comms. Just imagine the savings that could be generated, the efficiencies that can be generated if both cities were allowed to absorb those, because they already exist at our cities and operate. There are 170 single-tier municipalities in the province of Ontario. So there is no reason that the fourth largest city and the third largest city need to be coupled together. There is a process in place. It is working very, very well. I have confidence in the team that the Premier has appointed, and there is a process for reporting back, and I know they will make everyone whole and no one will suffer, or we will suffer all equally. But it is the right thing to do so that we can all control our own destiny. And of course, there are solutions for many of the services and service agencies, such as water and wastewater. Policing may have a different solution, etc. But I know that they will look for the best outcomes, and they are working very diligently and cooperatively and collaboratively with each of the CAOs of each of the cities and municipalities.
Back to your new job, or your next job. Have you heard, you said on John Moore yesterday that you hadn't heard from Premier Ford yet, and I don't think he's put out any kind of congratulatory message that I've seen, which is unusual. Have you heard from him yet? Since you became a Liberal leader?
I have not.
So he hasn't picked up the phone and called you, but you said on John Moore that you had heard from some cabinet ministers and you'd heard from the Prime Minister.
That's correct.
Previous to that,
the mayor of Caledon, though, is also now saying that she's asking the province to rethink its dissolution.
Yeah.
So now we have two of the municipalities involved saying they don't want to.
So Caledon is a different situation than certainly Mississauga or Brampton. Brampton can, of course, stand on its own 2 feet. I've witnessed Brampton freeze taxes. I've witnessed Brampton at a lower tax rate than the city of Mississauga. So they are very well able to stand on their own 2 feet, and I know they wouldn't do it at the expense of his reserves or his capital budget. So I know Brampton is very easily can stand on their own 2 feet, and Macallion does. Callan needs special consideration in different types of service agreements, and I know this is all being considered by John Livy and the Transition Board, and everyone will be dealt with equitably and fairly. But this process needs to continue. I know how passionate Hazel Macallion was about this, and I know that when I visited her in her final days, she kept saying to me, I'm talking to the Premier about it, Bonnie, don't you worry, I'm going to get a promise from him. So I know that he was very committed to Hazel Macallion, and he knows that this is the right thing to do, especially when you have a government that you claim the mandate is to cut red tape. Look for efficiencies and drive lean and eliminate duplication and waste. That's what this does. So I'm very confident this process should go forward and will go forward because it's the right thing to do.
This is a new moment in time, though, for the
Yes.
government. The new minister has been rolling back almost everything that's come out of municipal affairs and housing. How concerned are you that they could pull the plug on this dissolution?
I don't think that this is what this government wants to be known for, walking back legislation such as the notwithstanding clause and the Greenbelt. Certainly those were the right thing to do. This would not be the right thing to do. This speaks to their mandate, which is to cut cut duplication and eliminate waste and cut red tape.
Have you heard from the Minister of Municipal Affairs? Has he indicated to you what is going
No,
to
I
happen?
have not, and I touched base with my city manager and asked her if she's spoken with John Livy, chair of the Transition Board, and as far as they're both concerned, everything is proceeding as it should be. I can understand Mayor Brown and Mayor Groves will have concerns. These are more properly addressed with the Transition Board, and the Premier at any time can ask for an update on how things are moving forward from the Transition Board. They're doing great work and they meet very regularly.
It doesn't look like Mississauga is going to hit its the housing targets, the housing starts targets for this year, which means you're not eligible for any of the money from the building, what do they call it, Building Faster Fund, next year. How's that going to affect finances in the city?
So the city, as you know, is very fiscally well managed. Our property tax increase should come in just over 2% at the region of Peel. It'll be a little bit different. Of course, we want to get housing built. Of course we do, and you know that tomorrow we'll be entertaining the fourplex motion, which will allow gentle density. So it'll encourage that investment of $120 million from the federal government. But the market has slowed down. The developers are not building. So we need to encourage them to get shovels in the ground. We've done our bit we have 80,000 permits that can be pulled, 20,000 that are sitting there right now, another 60,000 that are as of right. The conditions are ripe for building. For us, we'd like to get shovels in the ground. It's the development community that has slowed down for market force reasons, for financing reasons, supply chain, labor, all those reasons. So we need to change those factors so that we can get shovels in the ground.
You said on Saturday you were open to running in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, but I believe the Liberals have a nominated candidate.
That's correct.
So
John
that's off the table
That's
now.
correct. John and I have spoken, and there is someone that we have, that party has in mind that they've spoken to.
So there's likely not going to be a by-election for you in the
Not
next
in the
little
very
while.
near future, but we both know things change.
Mayor Crombie, speaking of
everyone.
by-elections,
Thank you.
can I just ask you, Hazel Macallion, she endorsed you in 2014 in your first mayoral run. Do you anticipate that you'll endorse the candidate in Mississauga's by-election?
No, I don't think that's. I don't think I'll take that approach. No, there's an open field right now. I know there are lots of people that are expressed interest, but there will be many more. When there's not an incumbent running, there will be a lot of expressions from business and community and political leaders.
Bonnie, Paul Calandra today essentially hinted that you were incompetent when it came to building new housing in Mississauga and that you haven't met your targets for many years.
Has Paul Calandra built any housing? Thank you. Next question.
Mayor Crombie,
The Premier's seeming animosity towards you is because you both claim that Hazel Macallion as a mentor. Is there a rivalry over her affections?
I know that the Premier came to know Hazel Macallion much longer after I did. I think everyone will express collegiality and affinity for Hazel Macallion. She was beloved by all, and there's no rivalry in her affections. We're not rivaling siblings. She had deep affection for a number of people, and she encouraged us all to run. She encouraged me. She encouraged many people. She encouraged all women to run. She loved it when women ran in politics. She thought politics was better and less corrupt when there were more women.
Does it make you angry when
Mayor Crombie,
does it make
Premier
you
Ford
angry?
is accusing you of kind of being cozy with developers. You're accusing him of being cozy with developers. You've said you're friends with one. what's the public supposed to think here? Like, is there anything wrong with that, or is there one
So you
party
have to
that's too
remember
cozy? What
that
is
these
it?
people are our partners in home building, and they are stakeholders. They are not our friends. We are not cozy. These are partners in home building, and we have relationships as we do with all stakeholders. There are no personal relationships. They are not friends. They are not invited to my daughter's wedding shower or her wedding. These are stakeholders, and they are partners, and we need to work with them collaboratively.
Does it make you angry when the Premier launches his personal attack? Does it make you angry when you hear that from the Premier?
I know what the Premier is trying to do. He's trying to distract from his own record and the fact that there's an Auditor General's report coming out tomorrow. He must be deeply concerned about. Thank you, everyone.
Caucus meeting. We gave you lots of extra.